My name is Blake. I'm 23 years old and I work as a young mechanic in a small shop on the outskirts of town. It's nothing fancy, just oil changes, brake jobs, and the occasional engine overhaul. The pay isn't great, but I've been socking away every extra dollar for months now, skipping lunches and overtime beers with the guys, all to buy a really nice bouquet of flowers for my mom this Christmas. She's always done everything for me, working 2 jobs after Dad left when I was a kid, and I wanted to surprise her with something special. Not the cheap grocery store kind, but real, fresh blooms from the little flower shop downtown that everyone says has the best arrangements. The evening air was biting cold as I walked into the shop, the bell jingling above the door like a cheerful welcome. The place was lit up warmly against the winter dusk, strings of fairy lights draped over shelves bursting with reds and greens, poinsettias, roses, and evergreens that filled the air with a fresh, piney scent mixed with something sweeter, like vanilla from the candles on the counter. It was cozy, the kind of spot that made you forget the slushy streets outside. Behind the counter was the owner, a woman in her early 40s named Sophia. She had light curly hair pulled back loosely, a confident posture as she moved between buckets of stems. But there was a subtle sadness in her eyes, like she'd seen a few too many holidays come and go alone. I stood there awkwardly, scanning the displays, my hands shoved deep in my jacket pockets to hide how out of place I felt. Flowers weren't my thing. I knew engines, not pedals. Sophia glanced up from wrapping a bundle for another customer and smiled softly. "Need some help?" she asked, her voice warm and unhurried. "Yeah, I'm looking for something nice for my mom. Christmas gift," I mumbled, shifting my weight. "Nothing too fancy, but special." She nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. "Who's it for that you're being so careful?" Her tone was gentle, like she dealt with nervous guys like me all the time. "My mom," I said, feeling a bit less awkward. "I want to surprise her, make her happy." Sophia's smile deepened, and she started pulling stems from different buckets, deep red roses, white lilies, sprigs of holly, with an expert eye. "Moms deserve the best. Let's make this one she'll remember." She arranged them quickly but thoughtfully, tying a ribbon around the base. "How about adding a card? Makes it personal." "Sure," I agreed, watching her scribble a quick note on a small, festive card before tucking it into the bouquet and wrapping it in cellophane. I paid, wincing a little at the dent in my savings, and left with the flowers cradled carefully in my arms, feeling pretty proud of myself. Back home, the house smelled like Mom's baking, cinnamon cookies fresh from the oven. She was in the kitchen, humming an old carol, her apron dusted with flour. "Hey, Mom! Merry Christmas a bit early," I said, handing her the bouquet with a grin. Her face lit up as she took it, inhaling the scent. "Oh, Blake, these are beautiful. You didn't have to—" She pulled out the card, her smile widening as she opened it. But then her expression froze, a blush creeping up her cheeks. She flipped the card over, reading it again, her brow furrowing. Blake, honey, is there something you want to tell me?" she asked, her voice a mix of confusion and amusement. "This says, 'Thank you for being by my side through these tough months, my love, Mark.'" Wait, who's Mark? And my love? My stomach dropped. I snatched the card from her hand, scanning the words in horror. It was handwritten all right, but nothing like what I'd expected. "What? No, Mom, that's not— I didn't write that. The shop owner must have given me the wrong card." She burst out laughing, covering her mouth. "Oh my gosh, she thought you were— well, you know. Or maybe I've got a secret admirer I don't know about," she teased, her eyes twinkling. "Hey, maybe you're hiding something from me, son. Got a boyfriend named Mark?" I felt my face heat up like an overheating radiator. "Mom, stop, it's a mistake. I'm going back right now to fix this." I grabbed my coat, the bouquet still on the table, and bolted out the door, her laughter echoing behind me. The cold wind slapped my cheeks as I hurried back to the shop, my mind racing. How could something so simple go so wrong? But deep down, amid the embarrassment, I couldn't help but chuckle a little too. Little did I know, that mix-up was about to change everything. I stormed back into the flower shop, the bell jingling harshly as I pushed the door open, my breath coming out in visible puffs from the cold. The warmth hit me immediately, along with that same floral scent, but I was too flustered to appreciate it. Sophia looked up from behind the counter, where she was arranging a new display of wreaths, her curly hair catching the light from the overhead bulbs. Her eyes widened slightly at my disheveled state, jacket half-zipped, face probably red from both the run and the embarrassment. "Hey, you're back already?" she said, setting down a pair of shears. Everything okay with the bouquet? I thrust the card toward her like it was evidence in a crime scene. No, not exactly. You gave me the wrong card. My mom opened it and thought, well, she thought I was confessing something about a guy named Mark. She was laughing, but man, it was awkward. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes going wide before she burst into laughter, a genuine melodic sound that filled the small shop. Her cheeks flushed pink, and she leaned against the counter for support. Oh no, I'm so sorry, that's terrible. And hilarious. Let me see. She took the card, scanning it quickly, and nodded with a wince. Yep, that's the one for Mark. He's a regular. Well, was. He just moved to another city and asked me to send a bouquet to his ex as a peace offering for Christmas. I must have mixed up the cards in the rush. God, I feel awful. I couldn't help but chuckle now, the tension easing as her laughter proved contagious. It's okay, really. My mom teased me about having a secret boyfriend, said maybe she's got a hidden son she doesn't know about. We laughed it off, but I had to come fix this before she starts planning a coming-out party or something. Sophia shook her head, still giggling as she wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. Here, let me make it right. I'll write a new one, no charge, of course. She grabbed a fresh card from a stack, her pen flying across it in neat script. Something simple like, Merry Christmas, Mom. Love, Blake. She tucked it into a small envelope and handed it over. There, crisis averted. Thanks, I said, pocketing it, but I didn't leave right away. The shop felt inviting, with the soft hum of a heater in the corner and holiday music playing faintly from a radio, some old Bing Crosby tune about white Christmases. Outside, snow was starting to flurry again, and the thought of trudging back home immediately didn't appeal. You must be swamped this time of year, huh? Everyone wanting flowers for the holidays. She nodded, leaning on the counter with a sigh. You have no idea. But it's worth it, seeing people's faces light up. Want some hot cocoa? I just made a batch to keep warm, least I can do after that mix-up. Sure, why not? I accepted, surprised at how easy it felt to linger. She poured 2 mugs from a thermos behind the counter, steam rising in lazy curls, and handed one to me. It was rich and chocolatey, with a hint of peppermint, way better than the instant stuff I made at home. We stood there sipping, the awkwardness fully melted away into comfortable chatter. So, tell me about Mark, I ventured, curious now. Sounds like a story behind that card. Sophia smiled faintly, stirring her mug. He's a sweet guy, actually. Comes in every few months for arrangements. This time he wanted something apologetic. Said he and his partner had a rough patch, but they're trying to stay friends. He moved for a job, but didn't want to leave things bitter. I admire that, you know? Not everyone bothers with closure. I nodded, leaning against a display shelf. Yeah, that's decent of him. My dad split when I was young, didn't even leave a note. Mom raised me solo, which is why I wanted the flowers to be perfect. She's tough, but she deserves nice things. Sophia's expression softened, her eyes meeting mine with a quiet understanding. She sounds like a great mom, and you're a good son for thinking of her like that. There was a pause, the music filling the gap, and I noticed how the shop's lights cast a gentle glow on her face, highlighting the subtle lines around her eyes, signs of someone who'd laughed and maybe cried through life's ups and downs. The conversation flowed from there. She told me about running the shop alone for the past 5 years, how it started as a hobby after a tough divorce and grew into her full-time gig. It's busy, especially now, she admitted, but sometimes it gets lonely. All these bouquets going out to loved ones, and here I am, wrapping them up by myself. I set my mug down, feeling a pull to help. Well, if you're swamped, I could lend a hand for a bit. I'm off shift and I'm pretty good with my hands. Fixing cars all day, you know? Without waiting for a full yes, I started helping her sort a pile of orders on the counter, tying ribbons, labeling boxes, stacking them neatly for delivery. She watched me for a moment, then joined in with a grateful smile. You're a natural. Most guys would run from this stuff. As we worked side by side, the shop felt even cozier. I joked about how arranging flowers was like tuning an engine. Everything had to fit just right. She laughed, her hand brushing mine accidentally as we reached for the same roll of tape. You know, flowers are more than pretty things, she said thoughtfully. They help people say what they can't with words. Love, apologies, goodbyes. I looked at her, really looked, and felt something shift, a quiet connection in the midst of the holiday rush. Yeah, like that card mix-up. Turned my night upside down, but I'm kinda glad it did. Our laughter echoed again, warm and shared, as the snow outside thickened. The cold world beyond the windows seemed far away, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like just another guy grinding through life. A few days after the card mix-up, the holiday rush had picked up even more, with Christmas just around the corner. I'd found myself thinking about Sophia and her shop more than I expected, how she'd laughed off the mistake, the way she'd shared that bit about feeling lonely amid all the bouquets. Work at the garage kept me busy, elbows deep in transmissions and tire rotations, but on my way home one evening, I decided to swing by the flower shop again. The streets were dusted with fresh snow, Christmas lights twinkling from every storefront, and carols drifting out from open doors. It was late, past closing time for most places, but as I passed by, I noticed the lights were still on inside. The sign said, "Closed," but through the frosted window I could see movement. Sophia, alone, bent over something on the floor. Curiosity, and maybe a touch of concern, pulled me to the door. I knocked lightly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, wiping her hands on her apron, and after a moment's hesitation, she came over and unlocked it. "Blake? What are you doing here so late?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes were red-rimmed, and there was a slight quiver in her smile. "I was just passing by and saw the lights on. Everything okay?" I asked, stepping inside as she waved me in. The shop felt different at night, quieter, the scents more intense without the daytime bustle. But then I noticed the mess. Shattered glass from a vase scattered across the tile floor, water pooling around stems of broken lilies. Sophia sighed, running a hand through her curly hair. "Oh, it's nothing, just a clumsy accident. I knocked it over while closing up." She knelt down to pick up the pieces, but her movements were slow, almost mechanical. I crouched beside her, grabbing a broom from the corner without asking. "Here, let me help," I said, sweeping up the shards carefully. She didn't protest, just nodded gratefully and started mopping up the water with a rag. We worked in silence for a minute, the only sounds, the scrape of the broom, and the distant hum of traffic outside. But as I dumped the glass into a bin, I caught her wiping at her eyes quickly, like she hoped I wouldn't notice. "Sophia, are you sure you're all right?" I pressed gently, setting the broom aside and leaning against the counter. "You don't seem like the type to cry over a broken vase." She straightened up, tossing the rag into a sink, and let out a small, shaky laugh. "You're perceptive for a mechanic." She paused, glancing at the darkened window where snowflakes danced under the streetlights. "It's silly, really, but every year around Christmas, I send out hundreds of these bouquets. People order them for loved ones, wives, husbands, kids, friends. I wrap them up, write the cards, make sure they're perfect. But tonight, as I was finishing the last batch, it just hit me. I always end up with one bouquet that I send to myself. No one to receive it from, you know?" I stayed quiet, letting her talk. She crossed her arms, leaning back against a shelf lined with ribbons and vases, her voice dropping softer. "My ex, he left right around Christmas a few years back. We'd been together for almost a decade, built this shop together even. One morning I woke up to a note on the counter. 'I'm sorry, I don't have the courage to stay.' That was it. No fight, no warning. Just gone. I thought I was over it. I'm strong. I run this place alone. I smile through the busy seasons. But holidays, they remind me of the quiet after everyone's gone home. The loneliness creeps in." Her words hung in the air, heavy and honest. I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the way she blinked back fresh tears, trying to hold it together. It struck me how much she carried, running a business, dealing with customers' joys while hiding her own pains. "That sounds rough," I said finally, my voice low. "I'm sorry you went through that. No one deserves to feel like that, especially someone who brings so much happiness to others." She looked at me, a faint smile breaking through. "Thanks, Blake. It's not something I talk about much. People see the flowers and think everything's perfect." She sniffled, dabbing at her eyes with her sleeve. "God, listen to me unloading on you. You came for a card fix last time and now this. I must seem like a mess." "You're not a mess," I replied, stepping a bit closer without invading her space. "You're human. And honestly, after hearing that, I get why you love what you do. It's like you're giving people the closures or joys you wish you had." I hesitated, then added softly, You're not alone, you know. Not tonight, at least. I've got nowhere to be. Want me to stick around and help close up? She nodded, her expression softening with gratitude. We finished cleaning in companionable silence. Then she flicked on a small space heater in the back corner, its glow casting a warm orange light over us. We sat on stools by the counter, the shop's quiet enveloping us like a blanket. Tell me about your Christmases, she said eventually, turning the conversation. With your mom. Sounds like you two are close. I shared a bit, how Mom had always made the holidays magical on a shoestring budget, stringing popcorn garlands and baking cookies late into the night. She's my rock, I admitted. That's why the flowers meant so much. Wanted to give back a little. Sophia listened intently, her sadness easing as we talked. She raised a good man, she said quietly, her eyes meeting mine. There was a moment then, charged but gentle, where the air between us felt thicker. I reached out impulsively, giving her hand a quick squeeze. You're not alone, I repeated. You've got a friend in me now, if you want. She squeezed back, a real smile breaking through her tears. Why are you so kind, you young mechanic? She teased lightly, her voice warm despite the emotion. We sat there a while longer, the heater humming softly, the snow piling up outside. The vulnerability she'd shared drew us closer, like two souls finding unexpected comfort in the midst of winter's chill. By the time I left, promising to check in soon, the shop didn't feel like just a store anymore. It felt like the start of something real, fragile, but full of promise. Christmas Eve arrived with a vengeance, the sky dumping thick flakes of snow that blanketed the town in a hushed white. I'd spent the day at the garage, wrapping up last-minute repairs for folks rushing home for the holidays, but my mind was elsewhere, on Sophia and the quiet vulnerability she'd shared that night in the shop. Her story about her ex leaving, about sending bouquets to herself, had stuck with me like frost on a window pane. I couldn't shake the image of her alone, wrapping gifts for everyone else while her own heart ached. Mom had noticed my distraction over dinner, teasing me about being moony-eyed over some girl, but I just shrugged it off with a laugh. Little did she know. As the evening deepened, the streets emptied out, families hunkering down for midnight masses or cozy firesides. I slipped out after Mom went to bed, bundling up in my heaviest coat and grabbing the bag I'd stashed in my truck earlier. The drive to the flower shop was slow, tires crunching over fresh snow, the world silent except for the occasional carol drifting from a distant radio. The shop's sign was dark, but a faint glow spilled from the windows. Sophia must still be inside, finishing up. I parked a block away, not wanting to spoil the surprise, and pulled on the Santa suit I'd borrowed from a buddy at work. It was a cheap thing. Red velvet with white fur trim, a fake beard that itched like hell, and a hat with a pom-pom that kept flopping over my eyes. I looked ridiculous, but that was the point. If it could make her smile, it'd be worth it. Hoisting the bouquet I'd prepared earlier, hidden in my fridge all day to stay fresh, I trudged through the snow to the shop's door. It was a massive arrangement, vibrant reds from poinsettias, whites from lilies, pops of gold from chrysanthemums, and evergreen sprigs for that classic holiday scent. I'd picked each stem myself that afternoon, sneaking in when she was busy with customers, paying up front so she wouldn't suspect. No card mix-up this time. I'd written it carefully at home. The door was locked, but I knocked firmly, the glass rattling slightly. Through the frosted pane, I saw her silhouette pause, then approach cautiously. She peered out, her eyes widening in surprise before she unlocked it with a click. Hello? We're closed. Who? Her voice trailed off as she took in the sight of me, standing there in full Santa regalia, snowflakes melting on my shoulders, holding the enormous bouquet like an offering. Ho, 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 I said in my deepest voice, which came out more goofy than jolly. Special delivery for Sophia. Tonight, may I be the one to gift you flowers? She stared for a second, then burst into laughter, a full, delighted sound that lit up her face like the shop's fairy lights. Her hand covered her mouth, but her eyes sparkled with genuine amusement and something softer, like relief. Blake? Is that you under there? What on earth? I grinned, pulling off the fake beard to reveal my face, the cold air nipping at my cheeks. Guilty. I figured if you're always the one sending out joy, you deserve some in return. Merry Christmas, Sophia. She stepped aside to let me in, the warmth of the shop enveloping us both as the door shut behind me. Snow dusted my boots, melting into tiny puddles on the floor, but she didn't seem to mind. Her gaze fell to the bouquet, and her expression shifted from laughter to quiet awe. "This is incredible. You did this? For me?" I nodded, handing it over carefully. "Picked every flower myself. Thought it was time someone made you feel special. No strings, no mix-ups, just because." She took it, her fingers brushing mine as she cradled the arrangement, inhaling deeply. The colors reflected in her eyes, making them shine brighter against the shop's dim glow. For a moment, she was speechless, her lips parting but no words coming out. Then, tears welled up, not the sad kind from before, but ones that spoke of overwhelming warmth. "Blake, I don't know what to say. No one's done something like this for me in years." I reached into my pocket, pulling out the card I'd prepared. It was simple, on the shop's own stationery that I'd swiped earlier, festive with holly borders. "Here, read this. No mistakes this time." She set the bouquet on the counter gently and opened the envelope, her hands trembling just a bit. The words I'd written were straightforward, from the heart. "Merry Christmas, Sophia. Thank you for brightening my holiday and for letting me in. You don't need to send flowers to yourself anymore, because I'm here now." As she read, a single tear slipped down her cheek, but she smiled through it, looking up at me with an expression that made my chest tighten. "This is perfect. How did you know I needed this?" "I didn't," I admitted, stepping closer, the Santa hat still perched crookedly on my head. "But after what you shared the other night, I couldn't let you spend Christmas Eve feeling alone. You're too kind, too strong for that. And, well, you've made me feel seen, too, in a way I didn't expect." The air between us grew thick with unspoken emotion, the snow outside muffling the world into silence. She set the card down and reached out, pulling me into a hug, warm, genuine, her curly hair tickling my cheek. I wrapped my arms around her, the velvet suit crinkling awkwardly, but it didn't matter. In that moment, her loneliness and mine seemed to dissolve, replaced by a shared warmth that felt like the holidays were meant to be. We pulled back slowly, our eyes locking longer than usual, a spark of something deeper flickering there. She laughed softly, wiping her eyes. "You look ridiculous in that suit, you know?" "Yeah, but it got you to smile," I teased back, the tension easing into lightness. We stood there amid the flowers, the shop's heater buzzing softly, as the night outside turned magical with falling snow. It wasn't a grand declaration, just a quiet act of kindness, but it felt profound, like the start of melting away old wounds under the glow of holiday lights. The morning after Christmas Eve dawned crisp and bright, sunlight filtering through the frost-laced windows of our house, turning the snow outside into a glittering blanket. I woke up with a smile I couldn't shake, replaying the night before in my head, the way Sophia's laughter had filled the shop, her hug lingering just a second longer than friendly, the quiet magic of that moment amid the flowers. Mom was already in the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes wafting through the air. She hummed as she flipped them on the griddle, her apron tied neatly around her waist. "Morning, sleepyhead," she called as I shuffled in, rubbing my eyes. "You were out late last night. Another emergency at the garage?" Her tone was teasing, her eyes twinkling with that knowing mom look. I poured myself a cup of coffee, trying to play it cool. "Something like that. Had to deliver a last-minute gift." I sat at the table, buttering a pancake, but she wasn't letting it go. She slid a plate in front of me and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "So, no flowers coming back your way this year? Or did Santa bring you something special?" I chuckled, feeling my cheeks warm at the memory of the bouquet I'd given Sophia. "Actually, yeah. There's this amazing florist who's pretty incredible." The words slipped out before I could filter them, and Mom's eyebrows shot up. "A florist, huh? The one from the card mix-up? She must be something special if she's got you grinning like that on Christmas morning." She pulled me into a side hug, whispering conspiratorially, "So, what's your New Year's wish for her?" I thought about it, stirring my coffee absently. "I don't know yet, maybe just more time together." Mom nodded approvingly, patting my shoulder before turning back to the stove. Her words stuck with me, though, planting a seed. After breakfast, I helped her clean up, the house filled with the soft sounds of holiday radio, carols, and cheerful ads. But my mind was on Sophia. I pulled out my phone, staring at her number, which I'd saved after our first mix-up. My thumb hovered over the screen before I typed, "Morning! Hope your Christmas is off to a great start. Free Sunday morning for a park walk? My treat, coffee included." I hit send, my heart pounding a little as I pocketed the phone. Minutes later, it buzzed. "If there's flowers involved, count me in. Meet at the park entrance at 10? I grinned, replying with a quick thumbs-up emoji. Mom caught me smiling at my screen. "That her?" she asked, winking. "Go on, then. Don't keep a good thing waiting." Sunday came quickly, the snow from Christmas Eve still fresh, but melting slightly under a pale winter sun. I arrived early at the town park, a small bouquet in hand. Nothing extravagant, just a mix of winter whites and evergreens I'd picked up from a corner stand, not wanting to overstep by raiding her shop. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and distant wood smoke from neighborhood chimneys. Families strolled by with kids in sleds, dogs bounding through the drifts, the world feeling alive and hopeful in that post-holiday glow. Sophia showed up right on time, bundled in a wool coat and scarf, her curly hair peeking out from under a knit hat. She spotted me and waved, her smile lighting up her face as she approached. "You weren't kidding about the flowers," she said, accepting the small bunch with a laugh. "These are perfect, simple and sweet." "Figured it was only fair," I replied, falling into step beside her as we wandered down a snow-dusted path. "After all, you're the expert. Thought we could use a break from the shop, get some fresh air." The park was peaceful, trees heavy with snow, a frozen pond in the distance where ducks waddled awkwardly on the ice. We walked slowly, our breaths visible in the cold, chatting about nothing and everything. She told me about her plans for the new year, maybe expanding the shop with online orders, or taking a short trip somewhere warm. "I've been so buried in work," she admitted, "I forget to look up sometimes." I shared about the garage, how I dreamed of maybe owning my own shop one day, fixing classics instead of daily drivers. "It's not glamorous," I said, kicking at a snowdrift, "but it's steady, like your flowers, reliable beauty in a chaotic world." We stopped at a vendor cart for hot chocolates, the steam rising as we found a bench overlooking the pond. Sophia unwrapped a cookie from her pocket, breaking it in half to share. "This is nice," she said softly, her gloved hand brushing mine as she handed me my piece. "After that night, I didn't expect to feel this light again so soon." I nodded, savoring the moment, the warmth of the drink, the quiet companionship. "Me neither. But I'm glad I knocked on your door that first time. And the second. Holidays can be tough, but they remind us to open up, right?" She looked at me, her eyes reflecting the winter sun. "Exactly. Christmas isn't just for families, it's for realizing that no matter how long you've felt alone, if you dare to let someone in, happiness can show up on a snowy day like this." We lingered there, talking about dreams, small and big, the cold nipping at our noses, but our conversation keeping us warm. As we walked back, arms brushing occasionally, I felt the season's magic settling in, not in grand gestures, but in these simple steps forward together. The winter might linger, but with her, it felt like spring was already whispering promises.